The scriptures today remind us of the continuity of our faith. As Jesus walks along with Cleopas and his companion and says to them, "How foolish you are. Wasn't it true that the Christ had to go as happened, as according to the prophets?" For the continuity of our faith begins creation itself, and then as prophets came, pointing the way, the way we are to live, one, and the one who was to come. And we see the New Testament writers borrowing from the visions of the Old Testament writers, most especially Isaiah, but many others, pointing the way to the Christ. And Jesus unpacks that for them. In a sense, the prophets pointing the way to Jesus. And then in our first reading, the Acts of the Apostles, Jesus pointing the way to the church. For what happens? Peter, now in that role of heading the church, the just newly beginning, the seeds of the church that are growing now, Peter does what Jesus did. He heals the cripple. That continuity from creation through prophecy, through the Christ, through the church, and Christ present among us. And yet when we're faced with struggle and tribulation, as many are right now, we can forget or we can lose that hope, like the two on the road to Emmaus. We were hoping he would be the one. St. Augustine uses the image that the cross of Christ becomes his pulpit. By his actions he preached. And who is the one hanging next to him who did not lose hope, but one who also was suffering, who turned and in absolute faith said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." It's a hope that we also trust in and cling to, reminded in that absolute continuity of our faith and our connection to the risen Christ. That as he died and rose, we too who believe in him will do the same. And so we go back to those prophets and to Jesus Christ himself to know, how are we supposed to be living now to be a witness to that truth? We come to the altar of the Lord, and we come aware that he is present to us in the word and in the breaking of the bread. Community we are, at this table, at home, wherever you may be participating in this holy prayer. And as community then, let us lift our prayer, remembering the needs of all who suffer and remembering the needs of our church and community.